quick announcement. This Saturday, tomorrow, September the 25th, from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and doors are going to open at 12 p.m., we have brought Dr. Boyce Watkins to Baltimore. Baltimore, stand up. I know a lot of you are all excited about having Dr. Boyce Watkins here. Well, he is here. As a matter of fact, he's backstage now, but he is in Baltimore. All right. And we're bringing him to Baltimore to talk about how we can develop the Black business mentality. Okay. And so doors are going to open at 12 p.m. tomorrow. The event is going to be from 1 to 4 p.m. Come through, bring your family. Dr. Boyce Watkins is going to be dropping a lot of knowledge that we can actually apply. Because Dr. Claude Anderson said knowledge isn't power. The application of knowledge is, Ashe. And so he will be in the building tomorrow at the garage, which is located at 6 East Lafayette Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. And what I'm going to do is after we this broadcast up, after we upload it tonight, or after it is uploaded onto YouTube tonight, I'll be sure to put a link in the description so you can click on the link and get your tickets. Tickets are going fast, family. And you know we're in COVID, and so seating is limited. And so please, please, please get your ticket as soon as possible. Peace and Black power.
Let's combat and fight back with maltracks. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classics. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks. Cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr. Maya.
A BB Fahodie, a BB Toomey, peace to all of my thinkers, truth speakers, and truth seekers. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight I have with me another powerful guest, but he is no stranger to the community, Dr. Boyce Watkins. How are you doing tonight, Doc?
I am doing extremely well, sister. I'm very happy to talk to you and honored to talk to you. I have so much respect for your work.
Thank you so much, Doc. And look, likewise, I've been literally watching you for years, and it has come full circle. Now we're actually in the same space, building, talking. Tomorrow we'll be in the same space, speaking together on stage. And so the honor and the pleasure is all mine. Family, take a moment to thumb up this video, and also share this video, family. And if you're watching this show on Facebook or any other streaming platform, be sure to head on over to YouTube, type in Dr. Oya Ma'at, subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so that as soon as I go live, you will be notified. Also, family, I have created a Truth to Power Talk playlist. I brought on a lot of the greats, Dr. Malefe Asante, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Darity. I brought on Anthony T. Browder, Professor James Smalls, Dr. Kaba Kamene. And look, tonight I have Dr. Boyce Watkins in the building. So go back to that playlist and check it out as soon as you can. And also, family, join me back here each and every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Read Book Club. Okay, we're starting our new book this Sunday. So be sure to come on over, come back here, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday. All right, so let's jump into it, Doc. The title of the show is Developing a Black Business Mindset. But before we, I know we're going to jump in, but before we do jump in, I want to just have a conversation with you about wealth. And by wealth, family, I mean the total value of things that families own minus their debts, right? So wealth. Do you agree with this assertion, Dr. Watkins, that wealth perpetuates inequality in America? Do you agree that wealth is used to perpetuate inequality?
Does wealth perpetuate inequality?
Yes.
I don't think that the idea of wealth in itself perpetuates inequality. I think it's I guess I'm trying to frame that question properly, because I'm thinking, if you want to talk about whether or not there's inequality that links back to wealth, and if unequal wealth leads to unequal treatment in our society, an imbalance in terms of rights and possibilities, and the answer is absolutely yes. I mean,
yes.
Well, wealthy people have the power in America, and I really think around the world. I don't think America is unique in that particular regard. And also, where America is becoming interesting is that the inequality is really growing over time. The pandemic really stretched out economic inequality, and it spills over into other things.
Absolutely. And I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. When I framed the question, I was thinking about The Hidden Cost of Being African American by Thomas Shapiro. And he argues in that book that that wealth perpetuates inequality because of the way whites use their wealth, how they leverage their wealth to gain advantages over other groups of people. And
Yes.
so, yeah, so everything you just said, Doc, was definitely in line
Mhm.
with his assertion, and then what the things I've researched. Okay, and so whites possess most of the wealth, and we know how they got it. And family, if you don't know how we got it, please grab Dr. Claude Anderson's book, Black Labor, White Wealth. Okay, that will explain to you how they got it. So we know that they own or possess most of the wealth, and we were locked out from creating it. But for those who don't know that, Dr. Wilkins, the ways in which we were locked out of creating wealth, could you explain to those viewers how were blacks inhibited from generating wealth?
First off, obviously, I mean, there's just that big elephant in the room called slavery, right? Just the fact that we were the wealth, right? Like you literally, I mean, a group of slaves, you can get you can use that as collateral for a loan. You could actually get a loan for property by saying I own 10 Negroes and this is how much they're worth. So that kind of completely takes you out. I mean, you can't sit down and eat dinner if you are the dinner, right? So that was where we were up until 1865. After 1865, there's this period, which I think continues to this day, of pseudo freedom, where it's like, okay, you're free, but given that, to your point about wealth level sort of defining who has power and who doesn't, you're not really free, right? If you're in a capitalist society where money matters and you have no money, then you have no freedom because you didn't have to sell yourself you have to sell your human capital, which is your labor and your time, to a capitalist who then buys you and pulls you into a plantation. So to this day, we have the corporate plantation. Most of our people don't get to choose how to live their lives because your job, your boss, your career becomes the number one variable in your life. It's like having a relationship with a woman that won't let you go anywhere by yourself, or an overly possessive, clingy man that just follows you around everywhere, and it's an abusive relationship. It's literally the dominant relationship. We spend more time with our boss than we spend with our own children.
That's a
So,
fact.
right. So ultimately, Black folks have been sort of locked out of wealth uh, for a few reasons. A couple of which come to mind is one, for a very long time, if you acquired certain amounts of wealth, the people that had the power could just change laws and make it easier for them to take your wealth away. We know that there are thousands and thousands of examples of Black people like us who have accumulated massive amounts of wealth, land, property, all kinds of stuff. And somebody just came along and said, okay, we're going to lock you up and take your farm. Or we're going to run you out of town and take everything you own. Or yeah, you thought you had money in this bank, but now the money's gone. Or whatever, right? So ultimately, all these legal obstacles were put in place to ensure that whatever wealth we were able to accumulate was extracted. I mean, we're not the first generation of our people to have wanted to acquire assets and wealth. We're not the first generation to have dreams and hopes. We're not the first generation to be determined to leave something for our children. We're just the first generation that's really kind of been allowed to do that without nearly as many obstructions as we've had in the past. Doesn't mean they don't still exist. They do still exist, but they don't exist the way they did, say, 70 years ago, 60 years ago. So what's occurred now is a couple hundred years after, or not a couple hundred years, but 150 years after slavery, we still are in a situation where a vast, overwhelming majority of the wealth is in the hands of whites. They use this wealth in ways that are deeply offensive and deeply oppressive. It's a cultural domination and imperialization that is almost sickening for many of us that have lived through that. You go to work every day, and And the person with the money and the power is going to decide what the values are going to be in that organization, what's going to happen, what matters, right? So so effectively, you have a lot of folks that are awake to that. They become what I call economically woke, right? They're conscious, they're economically conscious, and consciousness to me is awareness, right? Like this is what's going on, this is how we got here. I read Dr. Claude Anderson, now I understand this game. But what do you do now? Well, now you say, okay, well, we're going to fix this, right? We're going to create businesses, we're going to make investments, etc. Well, the big variable that slows things down now is that when you're playing the competitive game of capitalism, it's hard to do that when you don't have a lot of capital. Now, we do have capital. We have trillions of dollars in capital, not just the 1.4 trillion in black spending power that occurs every year, but we've got lots and lots of other forms of capital that people are not aware of. We have tons of intellectual capital. There's so many smart, educated people in our community with skills and everything else. We have social capital, where with our connections and our networks as a form of capital. We have our human capital, which is our time and our labor and our energy, which many of us are raised to give that away to whites, but now we're starting to shift that over. And instead of putting that energy into his business, I'm putting that energy into my family business, right? And so we're in a rebuilding phase. And so I think that if you want to talk about those next steps to address that gap, and it's going to take a long time to address the gap, but the gap is addressable. The racial wealth gap is completely addressable. We know the solution. This is not a mystery. It's a matter of doing it at this point. And so if you want to address the gap from a political standpoint, when you talk to me about politicians, I don't really want to have any conversation with you about a politician that doesn't involve a discussion about reparations or, and access to capital for small black businesses to create jobs. Also, if you're talking about culture, wealth is very cultural. I encourage every family to make wealth building, entrepreneurship, asset and resource preservation to be one of your core values as a family, because you're not just doing that so you can get rich, you're doing that so you can protect yourself.
That's right.
So those are some thoughts that come to mind. I hope I didn't over answer the question.
No, you didn't. I mean, you answered it beautifully and explained, but during your explanation, you did say that we are not the first generation. You made the statement, you said we're not the first generation who wanted to accumulate wealth and to pass things down, to our children, assets, etc. And then you said, but we have less, I guess, obstructions today than our ancestors had, what they had. But what are some of those obstructions, Doc? Like what would be preventing Black people today? So, because some people may say, well, Dr. Boyce Watkins, we live in a post-racial society. What do you mean there are obstacles of Black people creating wealth? Look at JayZ and look at Beyonce and look at Oprah Winfrey. What do you mean, Dr. Watkins, that there are still some obstructions today? So what are those obstructions, Doc?
Well, when you start off mentioning JayZ, Oprah, and Beyonce, let's start there. Individuals like that are creations of white supremacy. If white folks took away all their support of JayZ, Beyonce, and Oprah, they wouldn't have fame and power that they have right now. White people built them, they can destroy them just like that. So that's not, in my view, a manifestation of independent Black wealth and power. That's it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It doesn't mean that they don't care. It doesn't mean that they don't add value to the world in some way. It just means that that's not what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about the movement and the economic revolution. Now, with that said, we will never live in a post-racial society, in my view, ever. And I don't think we ever should. And what I see as the variables that are challenging people, in the Black Business School, all we think about is Black wealth. And we think about it in the context of family and relationships. And so what I'm observing, my wife is a therapist and she's an expert on the subconscious mind and particularly things that affect the subconscious mind. And I was focused specifically on one of three variables, which is trauma. And we know that what we've gone through has been just so horrifically traumatic. We have been through the torture chamber in terms of being programmed in a very systematic, very strategic way to hate each other, to destroy each other, to hate ourselves in every way imaginable. And what this does is this creates very toxic economic soil, not just toxic economic soil, toxic political, social soil, family, all of that, right? We've seen what's happened to our families and everything else. And so part of the journey for us to rebuild is we really have to start with that internal work to rebuild ourselves. And because if I can rebuild myself as a Black man and make myself into the appropriate manifestation of what a Black man is supposed to represent, then I know how to address you appropriately as a Black woman.
Mm.
and address you in a context that allows for us to create a scenario and a system of reciprocity where we build each other up and we're not tearing each other down. And so because that's what business is. Business is just like love. It's just like relationships. Think about love. Why do so many families break apart? Why do so many children not have a mother and a father? Well, a lot of it's because traumatized people, they don't tend to be very nice to each other. They tend to be scared of each other. And when fear is kind of driving your actions and activities, then you're not necessarily going to get closer to other people and invest in other people. And the same thing is true economically. When there's fear in the economy breaks down. Like one of the things they measure is something they call consumer confidence, which is basically the amount of fear. They have a fear index. And when the fear index is high in the economy, they know the economy is in trouble, because when there's fear, then there's no trust. So that means that if I'm a bank and I fear that you're not going to pay me back, I'm not going to loan you any money, right? Which means you can't go out and pursue good investments because I'm not going to loan you. I'm going to loan you anything. If I am an employer and I have a fear that the consumer is not going to support me, then I'm not going to make investments. I'm not going to hire anybody. If I'm a consumer and I have a fear that I'm not going to be able to keep my job, then I'm not going to go out and buy products and support the economy by being a good consumer. I'm going to keep my money to myself. When there's fear, everybody hoards what they have. They're so scared of losing everything. So you think about that in the context of everything, relationships, right? If I'm dating a woman and we're thinking about building a family, and I'm just traumatized and scared, and I'm hiding and protecting my feelings and easily triggered and flipping out and running away at the first available opportunity, how are we going to build anything? We can't build nothing, right? Because we know that love and family and all these other things require tremendous amounts of patience and forgiveness and, and all these things that a traumatic person can't deliver, right? So ultimately, the very same traumatic energy that breaks down our families is the same energy that breaks down our Black economy. Look at the way some Black consumers and Black producers interact with each other. You're business owners, right? You got some Black folks hate Black businesses, scared as hell.
Yes,
Black person, right?
absolutely.
Or one little thing goes wrong, there's no forgiveness. It's all these. I can't stand with these, right? But then you got some of the Black business owners who do the same thing. They show less respect to Black customers because they expect certain things from Black people. So that economic love is very similar to relational love. And one of the biggest things I can say about forming healthy, loving relationships, and I've learned this actually the most from watching how the Nation of Islam teaches its people, is that I learned that it requires lots of trust, patience, forgiveness, communication, all these things. Like so you hurt me, I'm not gonna flip out, I'm not gonna cuss you out, I'm not gonna talk about your mama. I'm gonna get on the phone with you and we're gonna talk it out. And we're going to find some way that we can come back together and rebuild and repair. So I would argue very clearly that the most important thing that any person can learn in this world, Black or not, is the ability to seek out and maintain and repair healthy relationships. If you can learn how to do that really well, then I think you will be successful in anything.
I mean, Doc, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, when that whole premise that economics is relationships, they go hand in hand. Like you said, they go hand in hand. And so that was beautifully explained. And peace to Brother Jabari Nator. Brother Jabari Nator is in the building, my big brother. So peace to you, Brother Jabari. Looking forward to tomorrow's event. And family, for those who are just joining us, I'm going to show it to you again. Once again, tomorrow it's going down in Baltimore at the Garage, 6 East Lafayette Avenue. All right. Doors are going to open at 12 p.m. And the show is going to start at 1 o'clock. I don't like to call it a show, right? Because people say, but the discussion, the build is going to start at 1 p.m. We'll be there from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Family, I've dropped the Eventbrite in the chat. Click the link and get your tickets as soon as possible. Tickets are flying. Once it's packed, once we're sold out, family, we're sold out. Okay. So, I know some of you are like, oh, let me get it I'm trying to get my ticket at the door. Try to get your ticket now so that you don't have to worry about it when you get to the door. All right. So, Doc, my next question, I think I have 2 more questions left. Well, 3, I'm sorry. My next question is, what are the ways in which Black people can create wealth? What are the ways in which we can create wealth?
Well, I'll start with by answering the three ways that people get rich in America is very basic: stock market investing, real estate ownership, and starting a business. So, real estate ownership, like just as something as basic as owning a home instead of having a landlord, that is how people go from poverty to middle class. Just statistically speaking, the way people go from middle class to upper class is the stock market. The last 20 years, the stock market has been just, an extraordinarily easy way to make money. And I know people have skepticism about it, which they should. But if you look at the data over the last 100 years, the stock market has been a wonderful way for people to get rich, literally over the last 100, really more than 100, maybe 120, 130 years. And then that ownership of your own business, what that does is that creates what I call almost like economic curvature. And what I mean by that is you can really accelerate, like your income can go warp speed high if you have a good business idea and it takes off. Like you have some $20 product and it works and you get 1,000 people to buy your $20 product, you make 20 grand and you make it in an hour. You can't do that on a job. Right?
No.
Because on a job, you're doing what mathematically we would refer to that as a linear model of how you make your money, right? The more hours I work, the more money I make. I work 100 hours, I make $20 an hour, I make $2,000. Well, entrepreneurship creates nonlinear income earning opportunity because there is no time variable in that economic equation, meaning that it doesn't matter how much time you spent. There are entrepreneurs that have all their free time and still make more money in a day than a lot of people make in a month or a year. So I would argue that just as a basic premise, just as literally a rite of passage, economic rite of passage, every child in our community should learn how to start a business by the age of 12. I don't believe in equality and us trying to catch up and close gaps with everybody else. There's nothing magical about white people. I'm not trying to be equal with white people. I think that we, who knows, maybe you could say I'm a little bit of a supremacist when it comes to my own people. I feel like we are the chosen people. No disrespect to nobody else, but I believe that we should aim to be the best at everything, period. And we are. When we really tap into that, you see that all over the world. We are the best at the things we're the best at. And so I believe that every one of our children should learn how to start a business by the age of 12. Two, every child should own shares of stock from the time that they're born as early as possible with a consistent accumulation of stock, which will make them independently wealthy by the age of about 25 years old. So that takes them off the corporate plantation. They can then reclaim their lives. You have officially bought your freedom for your child. Number three, real estate ownership and ownership in general should be a core value. Right? Stop measuring economic success by how much money you make or what kind of fancy job you have. Measure it based on what you own, period. Right.
Facts.
So ownership, because ownership doesn't just generate tremendous amounts of power. Also with that power comes a lot of pride. I'd rather be a guy who owns something and has an income that's this high than a guy who owns nothing, who has an income that's twice as high. Right. Ownership it just means so much more than just the money. So I would say that that's important. And then the thing is, the reason I bring it up that way is because the strongest institution I think that we can have and we do have is our family. And and many of us are reclaiming those families. And some of us still are more fortunate enough to have solid families. And I believe that the family is the protector from all the nonsense that exists out in the world. I believe that if your family's strong enough, you can insulate yourself from the traps that are capturing so many of our people. So, you are the school system.
Absolutely.
You are the economic system. I believe that you, by coming together economically and truly seeing the value in what's there in your family, you can put your children in a position where they don't ever have to go work for anybody. And so what you're doing in Baltimore here, for example, with the Black Wall Street, with those 96 businesses sitting right there, I mean, that's beautiful. And the thing about it, the thing that people really want to see, I need people to take time and meditate on this, to see the true vision of what you're creating. When I go to Black Wall Street tomorrow, which I'm going to visit because you mentioned that to me, and I'm honored that I'm invited. I got to go. You're not looking at 96 businesses. What you're seeing is about $1 trillion in wealth that's over the next 100 years. UPS was started by a teenager who delivered packages on a bicycle. 100 years ago. Now UPS is worth about $126.4 billion. Coca-Cola was started by a guy who was a morphine addict who created Coca-Cola to give him an alternative to his morphine. He sold the rights to Coca-Cola for $500. Now Coca-Cola is worth about $150 billion or something like that. The Chicago Bears and the NFL was created with people that have less money than we have right now. And the Bears were bought for maybe about $500, something like that. Now the Bears are worth $3 billion just a couple generations later. So what I want everybody to understand is that you're really at the beginning. Like you're not, you're not the latest, greatest. You're not the new Negro. You are the ancestors.
Come
Right?
on. That's
your
right.
children and grandchildren are the ones who are going to take this thing to the next level. So whatever your business is, wherever you at, you might have a little raggedy putt business. Don't halfway know what you're doing. Ain't making no money, but you got to keep that baby alive because maybe it's your child or your grandchild that's supposed to take it to the next level. And that's what I want people to focus on.
Absolutely, Doc. And look, my mind went back to investments, and I was sitting here. I kicked myself with the Bitcoin. I remember years ago when Bitcoin may have been maybe a couple of $1,000s. You kept saying you all need to invest in it. I said, oh, okay, I don't know, I don't know if I want to spend a couple thousand on Bitcoin. And then it skyrocketed to $65,000 a share. So think about it. If I would have just purchased, let's just say 5 shares, I just put 10,000 into it. 5 times $65,000. You're looking at, what's that? 5 carried it to $325,000. $325,000 I could have made. You talked about investing in Amazon, and around that time, I think the shares were worth like maybe $1,100, and now they're worth like $3,000. Netflix, I remember you talked about that, and when you talked about it, it was $15 a share. Now Netflix is at $500. So I agree wholeheartedly. That what you're saying, that the stock market, you can create a lot, you can produce a lot of money, you could generate a lot of money just investing in the stock market. And so I kicked myself about 3 times, but now I listen to you, Dr. Watkins. Now I listen to you. It was some, I think it was Dogecoin. That was the latest thing you spoke about.
With
Dogecoin.
With Dogecoin, I don't really
Dogecoin.
Yeah.
I thought you promoted it at one point.
I did it for fun as an experiment, but I kept making sure everybody knew that Dogecoin's not real. That's not a real asset.
Okay, so get rid of my So get rid of that.
Yeah, well, or you can own it. Just know that that's not really your best investment, right? That's like going to Vegas and putting some money on the roulette table, and it's okay to have some fun. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that what everyone should just understand is that there's been no time in American history where a person who consistently put money into the stock market, even small amounts, didn't end up accumulating a significant amount of wealth. And so one of the things we have, let me think. I'm trying to think where it's, I think at allblackeconomics.com, we have something called the $5 a day investing plan, which is a little ebook. And basically it shows that a person who puts just $5 a day in the stock market over a 20-year period, they would have, I want to say it gets to about $100,000 historically, after about 20 years. 10 years is about 29,000. 20 years is about 102,000. 30 years is a little bit less than $250,000. 40 years, you're talking about $750,000. And that's less money than it takes to buy a Popeye's chicken value meal, right? So I created that because there were a lot of people who are trapped by the limiting belief that you have to have a lot of money in order to invest. And I've simply said, no, I could actually show you how to invest and really change the trajectory of your children with $5 in 5 minutes. Like literally, that's how quickly you can learn these things and set it and forget it and not even think about it again. And that's something I want people to understand, is that you don't have to know all this stuff in order to do it. There are basic things you can do that will put you and your family in a much better position, but it does take time. Growing wealth is like growing a tree in your backyard. You can't grow a tree in a week, but you keep watering that thing, then eventually something's going to grow.
Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. And Doc, let me ask you this, because there's this argument that we need to prioritize politics over economics. And I've read the work of Dr. Amos Wilson, Blueprint for Black Power. I tell people that is my Bible, Blueprint for Black Power. And Dr. Amos Wilson said we should be doing both. Powernomics. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about practicing group economics and group politics. It's like they go hand in hand. What are your thoughts about that? Because there's this growing sentiment that, oh, we shouldn't be worried about, starting businesses. We should be focused strictly on the politics because politics, legislation can be created that will generate wealth. We should be focused on reparations. What are your thoughts about that, Doc? Should we prioritize politics over economics, or do you agree with the greats that is something we should be simultaneously doing? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it has to be simultaneous, and the reason is that because in America, your politics is driven by your economics. If you have no economics, then you can't do politics in America. Your vote doesn't mean anything if you don't have any economic power to back it up. And so in a way, it's kind of like, I don't know, saying, should I focus on getting a car? Or should I focus on having an engine? But, well, if you got a car and you ain't got no engine, then you really ain't got no car.
Right.
You got the illusion of a car. So the engine of the car is the money. The money is the engine that makes the car move. At that point, you build the car once you know that you're going to have an engine. If you don't, you're wasting your time. So our problem with politics in America is that the corporations run the government. The corporations,
that's a fact.
Yeah, they especially with decisions like Citizens United and all that, they run everything. And so when you show up and you ain't got no money and you just have votes, what you are is effectively you are a pawn for those who have the real power in America, because the votes are, you look at Barack Obama and what's that guy, Warnock in Georgia, and these other candidates people get excited about. Those people can't run for office without getting hundreds of millions of dollars. I think Warnock needed about $250 million. Barack needed about $2 billion to become president. And where did they get that money? Well, they're not getting it from us, right? We're not giving the money, but we're giving them the votes to get that power. Well, how do they get the votes? Well, the politician focuses on getting the money, because once he gets the money, all he does is run an ad campaign, right? You need $2 billion, so you can basically buy $2 billion worth of ads, right? To manipulate people into voting for you, because you've got the ad specialists who will craft the message properly and get everybody to show up and vote. So once they've gotten the money from the capitalists to go buy the ads that will manipulate the populace into voting for them, and they're sitting in office after they gotten elected, and they're thinking, well, who am I going to take care of first? Do I take care of the poor fools who voted for me because they were manipulated by media? Or do I go take care of the person who gave me the money to manipulate the media in the first place? Right? They're going to go take care of the capitalists.
Absolutely.
That is a rational decision, to be honest. So I'm a little bit pessimistic in even believing that Black voting has had much of any influence in improving our conditions. I mean, just look at a city like Baltimore. My gosh, this city, when I think about Baltimore, I see a city that reminds me a little bit of my city of Chicago. It's got so these crazy contrasts. Y'all have some of the worst damn schools I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely. I mean, oh my goodness, terrible.
Yeah,
terrible.
So y'all got some neighborhoods that I'm sitting there thinking, who's in charge of this?
Well, it was the Democrats. The Democrats have been running it forever.
Right.
The Democrats.
Right. So you're putting these people in office. What the hell are they doing for you?
Nothing.
Well, show me evidence that electing all these damn fools has improved the conditions of our people. There is no evidence of that. And then you extrapolate, look nationwide, where you can't look at, are we better? Compare us today to 1968. Are we better off educationally? No, we are not. Are we better? Are our families in better shape than they were back then? No, they're not. Are we better off economically than we were back then? No, we're not. So where's the progress?
And so I actually had a debate with a pastor on a platform, and the title was "Have Black People Progressed?" And he was saying yes, and his measurement of progress, or he gauged progress by saying, "Oh, I can go work for white folks, I can live around white folks, and so that means we've progressed in America." And I said, "Well, brother, my idea of progress is moving in the direction of sovereignty, liberation, and sovereignty, but his idea was assimilating. He was measuring our progress based on us assimilating to white folks, integrating with white folks. And so you would agree with me that we haven't progressed.
No, we haven't. I mean, it sounds to me like this poor guy was basically a white supremacist. People don't understand that a lot. the majority of black people are white supremacists because you associate progress with simply being around white people.
Absolutely.
Being acknowledged by white people, being validated by white people. I got an award for, I got a Grammy, I got an Oscar, I got a Pulitzer. These are all white people, white people, white people. I went to Harvard. Think about this. You have black people that will say, look, I'm black and I graduated from Harvard, but you don't hear white people bragging about graduating from an HBCU.
Not at all.
They don't say, well, my gosh, you made white history because black people accepted you. People, they don't think that way. So unfortunately, this poor guy, I think, has been tricked into the same mind trick that affected a lot of us, where because you see whiteness like a brand, like whiteness is like Bloomingdale's and blackness is like Walmart. Right? So because you see whiteness as a valuable brand, you want that brand association that comes with being close to whiteness, because whiteliness is like godliness. Like, I want to be close to that, and by being close to that, by simply moving from a black neighborhood to a white neighborhood, I can turn to my family and say, look at me, look at how far I've come. Well, you didn't really go nowhere. You just moved across town, but you feel like you've made a lot of progress. You feel like you've come a long way. So I would encourage people, when people say that they're successful, I want them to really deconstruct that. So what makes you successful? What is it? Okay, you're making more money. Okay, that's cool. Okay, but you're working for a corporation that's owned by somebody else, right? So you don't have any real power there. They can destroy your life in a second. You hate your job. You're stressed out, but you feel good about that. You graduated from a big white university. Maybe you got $150,000 in student loans that you'll never be able to repay. So they've pretty much raped you of your family wealth in exchange for this validation, where they gave you a certificate so you can go work for another white person, right? So effectively,
teach.
It doesn't mean all these things are bad. It doesn't mean that you're a sellout if you live in a white neighborhood. It doesn't mean that something's wrong with you if you go to college. My own son's in college, so I'd be a hypocrite to say college was always bad. And it doesn't mean that there's any shame in working for white folks. But what it does mean is that there has to be something more to that. And in the midst of all this, as you're engaging with the world, which I believe that we should, I'm not really so much a separatist. I'm not a person who says, oh, we can't talk to white folks, we can't be around them, can't work with them. No, I think that when you are fully intact with your own self-esteem and you know who you are, you can engage with anybody. You can be in the world, but you're not of it. You're not, that doesn't define you, right? So that's where that knowledge of self comes into play, so that I can then go and do business with a white person, an Asian person, a Latino person, and I'm not going to be pulled away from where I am. I know where my base is. I know who I am. So I think that if you look at that standard model that, okay, my child is born, I send my child to white people to educate him. So they're making money educating my child. They're consuming media from white folks all day long. So that's indoctrinating their mind. They're listening to horrible, toxic music on the radio every day that's picked by white folks. So you're pretty much trained to be a white supremacist by the time you get to a certain age. And then you're taught that the best thing you could do, most successful you could be as a black person, is to get a white person to let you into their university and take away all your wealth in the process, put you so deep in debt that you can't repay it. So you're effectively a sharecropper now. That's what sharecropping was. They would put you in so much debt that you couldn't repay it. And then you go and work for another white person until you die. And then when you die, your family wealth is zero or negative, which means that you lost the game, right? So maybe in that model, as you don't have to be anti-integration to see this. Maybe within that model, you simply say, okay, there has to be more. So there must be something that says, I'm not a successful black person because I went off and went working for white people. I'm successful because I came back and I applied my talents to something that is building and developing the black community in a meaningful and structural way. I didn't just move to the suburbs and go work for Kodak or something and then come into the hood on the weekends or on Sundays or whatever. No, I'm actually in a black space with other black people, building with black people, and I'm using the bulk of my time to do that, right? I'm not giving the bulk of my time to a boss in another community. I'm giving the bulk of my time to my people. I give my spare time to other people, because the problem that you have, another area, we talk about the 1.4 trillion in spending power that black people lose, but what we're not seeing is the trillions in human capital that gets lost from the brain drain that occurs. Think about how many intelligent, fully capable black people you have who are not applying their talents to help people in their own community. I went through that when I was at Syracuse University. I said, wait a minute, I'm sitting in here teaching 30 white kids in the classroom, and I've got the secrets to finance that could benefit millions of my people, but I'm not talking to my people. I'm talking to 30 white kids in the classroom, and I'm supposed to be successful. And I remember thinking, what is successful about this? This doesn't feel like success. This feels like I failed because I'm applying everything that I have, and I'm giving all my energy to the wrong thing. I'm sitting in the wrong direction. I'm aiming the gun and I'm shooting at the wrong target. So effectively, I think there needs to be a new model. China actually has some of that figured out. One of the things that the Chinese did when they were kind of struggling is they said, we don't really care what you do overseas. If you are a scientist, we need you to come back to China and bring that science back to China. If you are great at business, come to China and start a business. We don't really care if you're in America doing great things or if you're in some other continent or whatever. We only care about what you're giving back to China. Are you pouring back into the bucket of China? And I believe every family needs to have that kind of same type of family-based, almost like a type of nationalism where you say, well, what are you doing for the family? We know you're doing good. We know you got a nice job. You live in a nice neighborhood. But what are you really adding to the family in a meaningful way? Right. And I think that if you think of things that way, then what happens is you're pulling closer together. And this is the economic concept. You're gaining economic strength because you're coming together as opposed to dispersing and spreading yourself out. So integration isn't just a brain drain. It waters down your power because you're not forming a core. You're all going out. You got 5 siblings. All y'all went to college. All y'all super smart. All of you together could create a multi-million-dollar business. But instead, each of you has picked an individual white person that has adopted you, and you're going to work for him. And at the end of the day, you have nothing to show for it except a string of paychecks.
Exactly. I mean, Doc, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, I know earlier you said, well, look, you said I'm not a separatist, but do you agree, or you could disagree, that we thrived better under segregation, when we were segregated versus integration? What are your thoughts about that? Do you think we were better off being, separated, segregated?
Yeah, I think that we were, but I think that I agree with Dr. Claude Anderson when he said that they didn't really want integration. They just wanted desegregation, which means that, you can go wherever you want to go, but you'd rather be with your people than to be elsewhere, right? So I'm not saying that I would like to go back to a day of segregation. Like, to me, that's almost a little bit of that would be white supremacist for me to say, no, I need white people to tell us that we can't go to their neighborhood so that I'm forced to stay with my own. I shouldn't be forced to stay with my own. I should be choosing to stay with my own. Right. Yeah. Like, I saw a guy that there was a joke I saw on the internet where this guy said, he said something like, he said during the pandemic made me have to dump my girlfriend because it forced me to spend time with my wife. And it turns out she's pretty cool. and so, you think about that, right? He shouldn't need the pandemic to force him to spend time with his wife. He should want to spend time with his wife, right? So we shouldn't have to be forced to spend time with each other. We should want that. And what I'm seeing actually is that's actually happening quite a bit. I think the internet has done wonders for bringing folks together. I think the pandemic actually is a great opportunity where you're starting to see people educating themselves, educating their own children.
That's right.
Creating their own jobs, walking away from the corporate plantation. So I think that we're going to actually end up better off as a community after the pandemic. Maybe give it 5 years. It's going to take some time to recover, but we're going to be better after the pandemic than we were before. So progress is being made. I'm very excited about that.
Okay. So you say you don't want to go back there, but in terms of us creating businesses, do you feel like, well, I guess when we were segregated, we had no choice. So we said, okay, well, we got to create businesses and buy and sell from each other. But when integration occurred, a lot of those Black businesses fell apart. I mean, I'm thinking about the Negro Leagues right now. We just had the Baltimore County African-American Cultural Arts Festival last Saturday. And there was a brother, Mr. Ray, from a museum out of Owens Mills. He came to represent the Negro League, and he and I was talking, and he said, man, once integration occurred and Jackie Robinson made it to the big leagues, the major leagues, then the Negro Leagues began to fall apart. But it's not only that, it was a beach in Baltimore. And brother JT Coins, I know that you're in the chat. Please put the name of the beach in the chat for me, but there was a beach in Maryland that was like known as the Black Beach, where they would bring in different acts, you know, Nina Simone and all sorts of folks, James Brown. He brought in a lot of folks, hired a lot of Black folks, and as soon as white folks said, "Hey, you know, our beaches are now integrated," Black folks left that beach, abandoned that beach, and they end up closing down. And so, do you think that we were thriving economically better, I guess, under segregation versus integration? What are your thoughts, Doc?
I think that we definitely did better in terms of ownership. We did better in terms of family, and I just really think some of these European values are just a little bit weird, you know. And that does bother me. I think that with media, you have a lot of cultural infiltration that leads to the type of imperialization, which kind of neutralizes the effectiveness that a lot of our people can have because they've been influenced by these other ideas. Like universities are a very strong systematic indoctrination process that ends up shaping the minds of millions of our people to the point where they come back to the community and they don't respect traditions. They don't respect the elders. They don't respect family because they think they're better because now that a white man has blessed me with education, I can come in and talk down to my grandfather or whatever because and tell him he's old fashioned because he don't want to wear pink pants and a tutu or whatever the hell it is that people coming back with. And so I do agree with you that there were some things about segregation that did benefit us. But I don't think that it would make sense or be practical to say, okay, I hope we go back to that.
Oh no, yeah,
But
no,
but
not at
but,
all.
but here's what I think though. I think that you go back to the term of economic consciousness, being conscious and aware of what you're doing with your money and your resources. And so by me being conscious about that, that means that every dollar I release, I'm thinking about where that dollar is going. Right. So it's the difference between the man who's forced to spend time with his wife versus the man who says, I love my wife. I want to build with my wife. Right. So basically, what I think we have now is something better, far better than segregation. You have people that, sure, you could go around and do all these other things in the world, but because blackness as a brand has elevated in value in your mind, you say, hey, why would I want to be over there when I could be right here? You know, why am I going out into the world when I got gold buried in my backyard? So I think that whole knowledge of self piece, we really want to think about that more deeply because what you'll realize is that most Black families are millionaire families on the day that you're born. Just all the cultural and intellectual and human resources that exist right there within the family structure and the networks of that structure has created multi-million dollar possibilities. So you've got the oil and gold buried right there in your backyard. And where economic literacy and intelligence and skill sets come into play is that's how you're learning how to drill for the oil, right? Like you can't tell me if you get me in a room with 10 Black people who have worked through all of our nonsense and our trauma, who are determined to love each other, determined to be supportive of each other, I could be in that room with almost no money at all or very little money, and we could figure out how to make $1 million in that room. It might take time, but we could do that.
We can figure
right?
it out.
That's why I want everybody to really understand that if we simply do something very basic, like create as many entrepreneurs as we create basketball, football players, and rappers, that's what you're gonna see. So people have to understand that this is economic theory talking here. There is wealth created when you simply bring people together. When you just bring people together and everybody's got different skill sets and you're bringing together creative ideas, networks and opportunities, pulling together resources, you can create things out of that, right? So I think that allows us to understand that instead of just waiting and saying like, gosh, the white man's bank won't loan me money to start my business, so that's why I can't do anything. Be a little more creative than that. Just know that God blessed you in ways that you might not be able to see because too many people have spent too much time telling you that you are disabled because you are Black. That being Black in itself is a curse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think being Black is a curse. I think it's a blessing, and it's the ultimate blessing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And brother JT Coins said the name of the beach is, the Car and Sparrows Beach. Car and Sparrows Beach. My last question to you, Doc, is this. Why do you feel that some Black people take issue with Black folks practicing capitalism? Because you'll hear people say, well, capitalism is, an exploitative system, Doc. So you're promoting capitalism. Isn't that the same system? Because there is a book called Capitalism and Slavery by Dr. Eric Williams. And so they talk about that. And so do people say, well, hold up, how can you say you for liberating our people, but then you're promoting Black capitalism? That's not the key to freedom. So what are your thoughts, or what is your rebuttal to that, Doc? Or not even your rebuttal. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, the first thing I would say is I am not a capitalist. I am not. I know too much about capitalism to be a pure capitalist, because capitalism is it's a system that, if it's practiced in its purest form, it is very harmful. What it does is it's no different from like a really bad MLM, where all the people in the bottom are working extremely hard, working themselves to death to take care of a small percentage of people in the elite space. Capitalism also, the way it's practiced in America in particular, it creates impossible choices. Like when you look at what Big Pharma does, like, okay, let's go get everybody hooked on OxyContin so we can go make another $1 billion. Or let's go tell everybody to go take this shot, when everybody knows that you can't trust Big Pharma, because their incentive, their only their primary motivator obviously is not just money, but it's growth. Those are two different levels, right? It's one thing if I say, look, I made $1 billion, I need to make another $1 billion this year. They're under a different level of pressure. They're saying, their investors are saying, you made $1 billion, you better make 1.1 billion next year, or we're going to fire you. So it creates it becomes a lot like, if you look at the fundamentals of a pyramid scheme or Ponzi scheme, it has the same sort of element. You can't keep growing forever. Like, I can't take eat a plate of food and then say, I need a bigger plate, a bigger plate, a bigger plate. Now I want your food and your food and your food. Next thing you know, you're doing stupid things that the United States does, like going to Afghanistan for 20 years and spending $2 trillion, conquered a country that you have no business being in, right? Because the capitalists are making money from that. Yeah, right. Even war has become a money game.
Business.
Healthcare has become a business, right? So capitalism in its purest form is absolutely horrible in my view. It does lead to various forms of slavery, particularly if you look at the way it's even practiced in a lot of third world countries. You got little 5-year-old kids that can't even go to school because they're sitting around, like knitting soccer balls for Nike, for $1 a week or whatever, right? So I'm not a fan of pure Black capitalism. It's no disrespect to anybody that is, but I thought about it enough and it does not gel well with my spirit. What I believe is that we must embrace free enterprise. Like the reason I can't vibe with those who I understand if people are anti-capitalism, but one of the other things that happened is I believe that Black people, because we were confused and some of us didn't know who we were, in the 1950s and 60s, we were infiltrated by people on the far left, the fascists, the communists, the anarchists, who the Marxists. Who have some good ideas, by the way. Karl Marx has some great ideas. He's very good at criticizing capitalism, without a doubt. He was right on point with all his critiques of capitalism. The shortcoming of the Marxist ideology, in my view, is that he didn't provide a good alternative that would allow us to achieve any sort of true economic power. This is like, okay, well, you can go tear it down, and you see that all the time. You look online, you see a lot of people that will tear down something that somebody else is doing and criticize the hell out of it, but they can't build something better. I'm more of a Black nationalist in the sense that we got to build something, right? And the thing about building is you have to have an engine for that building, and money helps to do that, right? Even if you look at the Black Panther Party, money would have helped them to achieve their goal a little bit more effectively. Right?
Absolutely.
So somehow, in the midst of all this, with this infiltration that occurred, where other people use us, we're getting used by everybody. We get used by the capitalists. We get used by the Democrats, Republicans. We get used by the leftists and the Marxists. Black Lives Matter was nothing more than a Marxist movement. That's what that was. That's why all three of the leaders were trained Marxists. That's not a coincidence, right? So stop it, Black people. Stop letting other people make you into a damn puppet. They got their hand up your ass, and you up here there, like, and you're not even, these are not even your own ideas. You literally got them from somebody else who has a bigger, broader global economic or global agenda. So what I would say that for our community, what we have to do is understand that there's nothing about Black activism that says that you have to take a vow of poverty. That's the first thing. This idea that somehow me being broke and not making a nickel from my activism means that I'm not a righteous activist. That's a bunch of nonsense. I got to feed my family too. And
That's right.
the more liberated I am economically, the more free I am to do what I got to do and say what I got to say. Right. So you should want your leaders to be economically free. Right. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're terrible people. And also, when you have a strong base, a strong economic base, and good free enterprise and good business development, well, then you can create jobs for your people, which liberates them from the corporate plantation. Because one of the really stupid paradoxes that you see, and I'm not making fun of my brothers and sisters that are on the left, is that you'll see them on the weekends that they're protesting against the capitalists and the corporations and blah, 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 blah. But then on Monday, they got to go to work for a capitalist because they got to pay the bills. Right. So I can't sorry, man, I can't protest on Monday. I got to go to the factory. Well, so why not have a model that allows us to create ethical business, ethical business structures that allow us to have what we need to build wealth in our community so that we can use that wealth to insulate and protect our ideas and to protect the rights that we deserve as human beings. I don't believe in America that a poor person has the same rights as a rich person. I just don't believe that. And I don't believe in America that a broke community, a broke and broken community, has the same rights or power as a community that is solid in every single way.
I agree.
Solid economically, right? Because I can tell you, when I think about my own family, the type of family I wanted to build with my wife was one where all of our financial stuff was solid so that we ain't got to go beg nobody for nothing. We can preserve every ounce of our dignity. We can protect ourselves from predators. Our children can get what they need. And then also at that point, the bigger goal is to make sure also that we are solid just as a family, that we're getting along with each other, and that we are honoring our family as the institution that it's supposed to be. Right. And so in a way, what I would say to people, and this is a personal preference, people can view money how they want, but money is not really the be all end all. And that's another thing about the hardcore capitalists, is that the money kind of justifies and defines everything. Like if you go to BET and you say, why are you putting this stuff on TV? First thing they'll say is, well, you see how much money we made? Look at the ratings on the show. Right. So the capitalist thinks that the money is the be all end all. And that to me is a low vibrational kind of line of thinking anyway, because money should be seen really as a tool for you to pursue the higher purpose that matters to you and the people that you love. So money is a little bit like, you could compare it to like a bathroom. A bathroom is not that important when I'm buying a house, but I have to have a bathroom if I'm going to live in that house. But I'm not going to just buy a house. I'm not going to buy a house just because it has a bathroom, right? So if you give me a house that has no bathroom, I cannot live in that house. You see what I mean? So money is simply a stepping stone for you to get to the point where you can climb up that Maslow's hierarchy towards self-actualization, where you can climb up, right? You can start climbing up and really truly find out who the heck you are. Because again, that knowledge of self piece, right? Self-actualization. I've actualized myself, my purpose. I know why God put me on this earth.
That's
right. You can't get to that point if you're worried about paying the rent.
That's right. You can't get to that point if your basic physiological needs of food, clothing, and shelter and security, if that isn't fulfilled. And that's the bottom. That's the foundation of the pyramid. Pyramid. I said period. Pyramid. Absolutely.
You said it better than me. I could have said all them words, because what you just said right there was right on point.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doc. Doc, I gotta drop a bomb for you. Hold on. Fire! 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 Woo! People in the chat, they are loving you, Dr. Watkins. They said this is just powerful. They said you dropped nothing but facts tonight. Shout out to my brother in Buffalo, New York, Black Ace. He's laughing. I mean, it was beautiful tonight, Doc. We appreciate you so much, just for being here. Family, family, family. Let me enlarge this and show this once again. Family, join Dr. Boyce, Reality Speaks, myself. We will be at the garage tomorrow from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Doors open at 12 p.m. Please get your, please get your tickets as soon as possible. Moderators, please drop that link in the chat one more time. Please get your tickets as soon as possible. I believe it says it right there on the flyer, $50 in advance, $60 at the door. And so if you come to the door and we've sold out, you won't be able to get in. All right. So make sure that you get your tickets as soon as possible. Doc, do you have any closing words for the listening audience? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
okay. I want to say that I'm honored. I'm honored to speak with you, Dr. Mott. I have so much respect for the great work you're doing. I want to honor all the individuals that maybe they don't have a big platform, but what the work you're doing with your families and not just supporting what we're doing, but the things you're doing on your own. This is what that power is going to look like. And really, I want to also especially honor everybody who's breaking the generational curse, everybody who is standing up against various forms of oppression, because we have enemies both foreign and domestic that we have to battle with a little bit, and everybody who's seeking to improve themselves in the areas of health, wealth, and relationships. We are being challenged with a lot of new ideas in this generation. I talked to Queen Afua, and Queen Afua makes you feel like everything you've been doing your whole life food-wise is crazy and wrong. And why would you be eating that? So we all have our journey. We're all learning. And I really think, though, that if we dig our heels in and just say, wherever I'm at, I'm going to do my best, right? I believe that we have that ability to really, really change our families for many generations to come. Just keep doing your best. This is your time. In 70 years, most of us will be gone, and your grandkids will be talking about you. Well, give them something to talk about.
That's right.
Like let's really have that vision. Like imagine if back in like 1920, Black folks in 1920 said, we're really going to do things right now that they're going to be talking about in the year 2020, right? We're talking to you right now, right? I want us to do that with our future. Like I want us to really look at the year 2120 and say, we are talking to you. We are doing this for you. We are planting seeds for you. We're going to throw the ball across the plate so you can knock it out the park. We're going to set the stage for you to go kill it. How inspirational would it be for them to hear that 100 years from now? Right? How inspirational would it be for us to hear somebody in 1920 saying, I have a message to the people in the year 2021, right? That, so I think I would encourage everybody to gain that vision and meditate on that, because people that tend to have the most vision tend to be the ones who win, right? Just like basketball, the guy or the woman who can see the whole court is a person who knows where the ball needs to go. They know how to get the ball in the basket. So let's practice having that court vision. Stop worrying about the little stuff. Start seeing the big stuff, or as T.I. used to say, big stuff popping, little stuff stopping. So let's stop with the little stuff. Stop worrying about what's happening around you. Focus on the big possibilities that exist in your life, because you can do it. You have it in you. You have everything you need. So God bless everybody. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Doc. Peace and Black Power, family.
Let's combat and fight back with maltracks. The war of the minds, they want control of the masses. And Common Core, they dumb us down in the classes. Without knowledge, we can't gain access. Build with the elders, take notes and write classics. We keep whining on the block, how it's gonna stop? Let's start supporting our own, make their supply drop. We buy stocks, then we buy blocks, cause we know the truth and we tuned in to Dr.